Mr. Chairman, we're debating this bill because there is a serious problem that everybody in this House should acknowledge around water management issues in Canterbury. The fact is that Trevor Mallard last month said everyone knew there was a problem here. And I challenge Labour members to stop the denial. They were entrusted with the Government of New Zealand for 9 years, and in that 9-year period, did they do anything around improving water management? Can I tell you, my own Chief Executive, Dr. Paul Reynolds, a respected public servant, even commented that after the previous government's water program of action, he, as a public servant, described it as a program of inaction. Such was the lack of any leadership or direction around water management issues. He said that about 3 years ago when he was the Deputy Secretary of MAF. Now, I want to challenge Ruth Dyson about a number of claims she made. Can I firstly deal with the claim by Ruth Dyson, who said this? Ruth Dyson said not one single discussion had taken place with the 10 councils. That's what Ruth Dyson has just claimed. Ruth Dyson, I attended a meeting with the mayors of every single council from Waitaki to Kaikoura, every single one of those councils, and every single one of those territorial councils support this responsive action that this government is taking. Well, the member says, well, look, the mayors don't have a democratic mandate. Well, that's interesting. Well, her colleague did. Her colleague last night said that the mayors had no right to speak for the people of Canterbury. The member attacks the Maori Party for its support for this bill. I would note that Ngāi Tahu, of which I thought Labour would have some relationship with, said that they reluctantly agreed that the appointment of commissioners was necessary in Canterbury. Can I deal with the rhetoric we've heard from Ruth Dyson and others about where it's appropriate for Parliament to intervene in local authorities? Where was Ruth Dyson when David Cunliffe, the Minister of Health, sacked the democratically elected Hawke's Bay District Health Board? Where was Ruth Dyson when Helen Clark sacked the entire Auckland District Health Board? And the member says that it's not appropriate. I'm sorry? Oh, well, it says because I wasn't in Parliament, it's not relevant. It's okay for Helen Clark to sack a democratically elected district health board, but in fact the members opposite are really playing silly politics in this regard. It's interesting to note that actually a former Labour government, in one act of Parliament, abolished 460 democratically elected bodies in one go, 460 democratically elected councils in one go. So for the Labour Party to stand in this Parliament today and to say it's inappropriate for Parliament to intervene in local authorities is really an extraordinary claim for them to make, and really shows how shallow their arguments are here this morning. My simple challenge for Labour members is this. All New Zealanders appreciate that we have a major problem with water management in Canterbury. This government has responded with real leadership with this bill about how to fix that. And my challenge to members in Labour is, well, what's your response? Your response in 9 years of government was absolutely zip. Well, Mr Darren Hughes says has an election. Well, actually, if you look at your own comments, and I take Marion Hobbs, why was it that the previous Labour government required special legislation to put a water plan in the Waitaki? It's because Marion Hobbs told this Parliament, and this is way back in 2003, that ECAN had failed to put in place the proper plans. Now, if members opposite want to talk about democratic rights, why was it appropriate in 2003 to pass a special bill through this Parliament, Mr Chairman.
Honourable Nick Smith.
To pass a special bill through Parliament to take off the democratically elected regional councillors in Canterbury the right to do a Waitaki water plan. Why was that okay? If you really believed in the absolute of democracy around regional councils, why would they have ridden roughshod? And do you know who wrote the regional plan? It was actually written by people appointed by the then Environment Minister. And so I say to commissioners, so why is it okay for Labor, when they are in government, to dismiss health boards, to go into urgency and to pass special legislation around elections and commissioners in Rodney District? Why is it okay for them? And it's right, National did support that. And well, Labor voted for the urgency motion. I note, and I think it's somewhat contradictory and shows about the mess in the Labor Party, that they voted for the urgency motion. But you see, when National was in opposition and confronted with the problems...
Point of order, Darren Hughes.
I know that part one is a wide-ranging debate and there's a lot of opportunity for opposition calls, but the Minister persists in this myth that the Labor opposition voted for an urgency motion. That is simply not correct, and it's going to lead to disorder if the Minister misrepresents the opposition's position on procedural matters. He's not helping the passage of his own legislation.
I understand the member's point. I think it really, though, falls into the realm of debate, and there are some technical issues around how that vote was taken that make it a little bit difficult to exactly and precisely determine what the intention was, because there was no party vote. But it is a matter of debate, okay?
Speaking to the point of order.
I've finished with the point of order now.
I'm happy to make it a debating matter. It is a matter of record that at the time when the urgency motion was taken, that there was no vote. There was a consensus that the House move into urgency. Oh, I see. So, well, we've got this new rewriting of the rules, which is so common with Labor.
Sorry, point of order. Dr. Kennedy Graham.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. If I understood the Minister to say that the vote was taken entirely by consensus, by voice, that is incorrect. The Green Party registered no, verbally.
Speaking to the point of order.
Speaking to the point of order.
Mr Speaker, I was in the House at the time the vote was taken. I was sitting right up front and I very carefully heard. There were no voices registered in opposition to the urgency motion. There was no party vote sought. It has long been established, the practice of Parliament, that if parties wish to register a vote against a motion, they seek a party vote. That did not occur. The record shows that the Parliament moved into urgency by consensus.
Right, I'll take Honourable Darren Hughes.
Mr Chairman, we've now got two issues. One is the substantive point raised by Mr Graham. Second point is that the Minister, in his response to the point of order, has now accused the member of misleading the House and not taking his word. Mr Graham says that on the voices the Green Party voted a certain way, and if the Minister persists in that, he's accusing a member of misleading the House. Now, all of this, both those separate points lead to the point that if the Minister wants to get his legislation through in a rational, logical, calm and orderly way, he'd be best to focus on the debate of substance in the bill rather than the avenue he's going down, which is going to delay his own legislation, and I hope he understands that very simple point I'm simply trying to make to him.
I'll take the next one.
And Mr Chairman, I do want to raise the point that Mr Hughes has said, and that is that by me pointing out exactly the events that occurred around the urgency motion, then the Labor Party approach is going to be one of, well, we're going to throw our toys out of the cot and not allow my legislation to be passed. I don't think that's appropriate threats. Well, it's point of order. Point of order, Mr Chairman. We're having interjections.
Sorry, I'm actually just trying to sort my way through this process, so I probably was a little bit inattentive, but members shouldn't interject, shouldn't make any contribution while we're hearing points of order. Nick Smith.
And my point of order, Mr Chairman, is that the government, I think he's the junior opposition leader of the House, Mr Darren Hughes, has made the claim that by me pointing out the events that occurred around the urgency motion and the vote, that somehow that's going to stop the passage of the legislation through the Parliament. And I don't think those sorts of threats of that sort are at all helpful to the orderly running of the House.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Minister's contribution